I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube Jewel Saints. I'm joined by my buddy Gordon Dymowski, my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to talk Dark Shadows episode 271. It is the flashback of flashbacks, if you will. It's the flashback of the back of Paul Stoddard's head, and Liz hitting him with a fire poker and telling the story of why she prevented him from leaving and how she met Jason McGuire and knew about him and all that stuff. So guys, what do you think about this flashback episode?
I loved it. It was an episode I waited for a long time, and for me it was really the first rock star episode of Dark Shadows.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, we kind of building on Joel's, statement about the back of Paul Stoddard's head. The great thing about this scene is that it's being told from Elizabeth's memory.
Yeah.
So the fact that Paul Stoddard, we don't really need to know what he looks like because he's more of like a MacGuffin or he's not really a character. He's just more of a past presence. Yeah. And I'd love to know if I don't who wrote this episode.
That would be Joe Caldwell.
I don't know if this is a case of because they handled it in the whole, Jason McGuire closes the door and tells Elizabeth like, "Hey, look, don't worry, it's too bloody." Blah 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 blah. Yeah. I wonder if that was deliberate because Caldwell was thinking, "Hey, maybe a later writer could pick up on this and pick it up," or if it was just like, "Okay, I can't be bothered to describe it," and that the when it's picked up in the Leviathan sequence, they're like, "Oh wait, we found the script. We don't know what happened to Paul Stoddard, so they just took it from there."
Yeah. Patrick, what did you think?
I thought it was much better, gooder than other episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It was it was the flashback I'd been looking forward to so much. I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought we would just be told this stuff. I didn't think we were going to get it like that. And so, I mean, it was the first time that I realized how much I love Dark Shadows because of how it delivered on its promise. And it delivered, in a big way, much bigger than I was expecting it to. And I thought, okay, this is worth hanging around for.
Mm-hmm.
I like what Joe Caldwell does here with Paul Stoddard. Paul Fabini, who plays Paul Stoddard. I don't think they did that on purpose, but I like how they do this. You're right. It's from Elizabeth's memory. You see the back of Paul Stoddard's head. You don't need to know what he looks like. True. But I also think by doing that, by not showing what he looks like and by how the character is presented in this memory or flashback, if you will, it makes the character all the more interesting. You're sort of fascinated, like this dude's an a-hole, but you're interested in him too. It's like, really, you were going to take the money intended for your own biological daughter and just take it. It lets you know how cold Paul could be at the same time, because again, we've heard bits and pieces about Paul Stoddard through Roger, through Elizabeth, through Jason, and it's just like it's not a lot to go on. And now you see the real deal. You see Paul Stoddard and see what kind of man he really is, or in this case isn't. Wanting to abandon his daughter, and to be devoid of all his responsibilities is interesting. I like that because it lets you know that Elizabeth's relationship was not perfect with Paul, and it's something Roger hints to way back, where he says he would come home and hear them fight. So I like that. I mean, I know I'm not saying the writers are trying to tie that together. I don't think Joe Caldwell is, in a sense, but it's a nice little, if you remember that far back of what everybody has said about Paul, it's a nice little hint that, hey, yeah, Roger was right. This wasn't the perfect romance as maybe Elizabeth has suggested, or like her waiting for Paul to return. But she hasn't been the only one who's been waiting for Paul to return. Carolyn has too, which is something you pick up in this episode as well. I really love how Joe Caldwell handles this overall. It's really smart. It's clever. They make the character of Paul. He makes the character Paul even more interesting. So does the actor. Paul Fabini deserves a lot of credit for portraying the character. And I love Dennis Patrick in the memory sequence. He's just golden in it. Really, really.
It's nice to hear the other accent.
Yeah.
That was a real revelation. It hadn't occurred to me. Oh, he's American.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's part of me that kind of wished that, like in 1897, they could have brought Dennis Patrick in as kind of like a gentleman thief, rogue kind of character.
Oh, God, he would
just to give Quentin, like David Selby's Quentin, like someone to bounce off of, even if it's just, oh yeah, there's a guy who's even more of a bastard than I am.
Sure, handlebar mustache, top hat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In some ways, Aristide is a bit like that, isn't he? He does steal.
Yeah, but a gentleman thief is more of a Aristide's kind of like your common, I'll break into things. A gentleman thief gets by on charm, and often he steals more either for the challenge of it, or there are some who do it because they do it as like a Robin Hood thing. They steal from the rich, give to the poor, or they're like the character of A.J. Raffles, who was created by Arthur Conan Doyle's brother-in-law. E.W. Hornung, and Raffles' attitude is, rich people are just stupid and they're annoying and they deserve to be robbed, basically.
There's a lot of charming thieves, like character-wise, out there. Like there's a movie called, I think it's called Out of Sight, where George Clooney plays a thief.
Yeah, it's more of the idea that it's like Aristide is kind of your, and Sanders a bit like this too. More of the kind of like, you steal to get by, you steal to get rich. The gentleman thief, it's a little bit more of a, it's about the thrill. It's less about
Niven in Pink Panther.
Right. And kids, that's your literary reference of the day. See, when you watch this podcast, you learn stuff.
It's true.
Yes, you do. What did you guys think of how Anthony George is sort of trying to come into his own as Burt Devlin a bit? He's speaking up for Elizabeth. Now in the next episode, you would hear that he didn't. At one point, he wanted Elizabeth destroyed, and now not so much. I know that's in the next episode, not in this episode. But in this episode, he is saying, let Liz talk, and Carolyn does say she almost shot Dennis Patrick's character, Jason McGuire, and that's when Burt picks up the gun. So what did you guys think about Anthony George in this episode?
Okay, that's a good question, Jewel, because what did I think of Anthony George in this episode? He's wonderful. He is a good, solid, square-jawed, Troy Tempest type leading man. Yeah. And to be fair and to be kind to Anthony George, you have to return to that mantra, because nobody's going to be Mitch Ryan.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Shoes to fill, and I think it's sort of like comparing a good, cage match type boxer to Mike Tyson. It's like, no, he's not going to be Tyson. He's not going to be George Foreman. But he's good. So yeah, that's I have to remind myself of that when I think of him.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that right now the series is, they've now have a vampire. They've now got like a new big bad. So what do you do with the character you brought on to kind of serve as the antagonist for the family? Do you, now, you've got Barnabas, you've got Jason McGuire, you've got Burke. You either, that one of those characters, that McGuire, at some point that's going to end. Do you try to make Burke like a third antagonist and try to write him out of it? Or do you make him a little bit more, keep like the Devlin edge, but make him more on the side of the angels, where he becomes possibly a reluctant ally? Maybe he's not, he and Roger aren't buds, but you give him a little bit more of the heroic role, because then you've got, once McGuire's out of the way, you've got, because there's an episode written by Caldwell during the when it goes to color, where he and Barnabas have that scene at the Blue Whale. It's all about, are we playing cards, or are we dueling swordsmen? So I think it's they're trying to figure out, what do we do with this character? And I think by putting him in the heroic wall, and he's not an entire hero. In that episode, they're talking about Carolyn shooting, and Burke says, "Yeah, I'd shoot McGuire."
Yeah,
utility is at that point.
Hell, and I'd empty a whole clip into him.
For me, anyway. When I was a kid.
I really enjoy him in this episode because, again, I agree with you guys. He's not Mitchell Ryan, but I do think he does try to find his own Burke Devlin. I do give Anthony George that, and I do think it's sort of starting with this episode where he's slowly starting to find that character for himself. That okay, and like you're saying, Gordon, they have a vampire. Do you really want to keep somebody who, somebody heel when they don't necessarily need to be the heel? Now, Barnabas is going to explode and be hugely popular, which is great for Dark Shadows history in a sense. But I think though too, you gotta when they're doing that scene in the Blue Whale where it's Barnabas and Burke, and they're saying about Barnabas says about a duel, and Burke says about, well, duels to the death. That's I'm not talking. I think that right there lets you know Barnabas is more, I'll play for keeps. And you sort of see that Burke, in many ways, that episode there, and I know we're not discussing that here, but to me, when I always watch that episode, I look at that and go, that lets you know that Burke realistically is no match for Barnabas.
Oh, sure.
Because, and I know Willie, I give credit to how the writers wrote it for John Carlin and John for selling it. Like he tells Barnabas, you can't just get rid of Burke the way you got rid of Jason. No one cared about Jason. No one wanted to find out where he is. Jason wasn't from here. Burke is from here. Burke's a known name. People care about him. And I think that was a great little way for the writers to get out of that. Like, okay, Barnabas can't directly kill Burke because it'll be suspicious. Sorry, I wasn't trying to...
No, you're right.
But with this episode, I really enjoyed how the judge was like, Liz, if you need me. I like, we don't get Dana Elker in this episode. We do get him in the next episode, though, which is cool. But Liz does make a point to, hey, I'm going to call the sheriff. I'm going to call the cops. She's had enough of the secrecy. They talk about the Collins pride as well. And really, too, she did not want this to, the reason she kept the secret so long is how it would affect Carolyn. And it affects Carolyn a lot in this episode. So that's my question to you guys. What did you guys think of Nancy Barrett, Carolyn Collins Stoddard here in this episode and the effect it has on her character?
I mean, she is fine. As far as a big Carolyn episode, it's no 720 or whatever the last one was. Yeah, so it was 740. Yeah, I mean that's the big, for me. That's the big Carolyn episode. But she's fine. Yeah, this is all about Joan Bennett and send off for Dennis.
Yeah. Gordon?
Yeah, I mean it's meant to be like the this could easily have been like a mid-season, if this had been an hour-long drama, it would have been the mid-season closer because it answers so many questions. But it also provokes like a couple more, like this whole, if you take this with 270 and say you were to edit it into a 1-hour episode, which you could easily do because you just cut out the beginning and end credits. One of the implications is that basically Jason and Paul Stoddard ran a con on Elizabeth, and Paul got away with it because he's scot-free.
Yeah.
Because we don't see a body. And when I'm kind of going deep lore, would the obvious question be, is Jason McGuire a Leviathan agent? Hypothetically, I mean, we don't have anything in the text.
Sure, he could be.
It could be.
Yeah. I mean, if I found that out, I would not be unsatisfied with my Dark Shadows dollar. But I just feel like Jason's too independent. I just can't imagine him falling lockstep into a cult like that. But he is a member of a cult. So I mean anyway. So it could be.
Mm-hmm.
There's a line, not in this episode, but in the following episode, where Dennis Patrick says about that the last time he saw Paul Stoddard was in China and he looked well, and he hasn't seen him since. And it's like, okay, so Paul Stoddard is out. You get told by the writers, Paul Stoddard is out there somewhere, and I think that's a great way to leave it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's one of the best because again, we don't see Paul, and I like the fact that they got Dennis Patrick to play Paul Stoddard. I think that was cool.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's really perfect because he'd done it anyway.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they leave it like that, and they leave that room for the character to come back. And how everybody treats the character. Carolyn she has mixed feelings about it. Elizabeth just ain't happy about it, and you can't blame her.
Mm-hmm.
Really great stuff. But in this episode here, we're here for the memory, and then we get the memory. Jason runs out. He I like how there's some shots fired through.
Yeah, Jason skedaddles.
He I mean, I think he knows it's time to go.
Yeah. He knows that in Collinwood, he's not even worth ramen in prison. So
it's true. It's true.
What's you guys' favorite scene in this episode?
Just a flashback, I think, in general.
Yeah.
And I think the last few minutes where she's holding the key and the voiceover talks about, I knew them from then on. I was always a prisoner in Collinwood.
Yeah.
That it's not just, I could never leave or secrets. That essentially Jason and Paul basically stole something very critical to her. They stole that feeling of wanting to engage with the outside world, of wanting to, that eventually she felt trapped at Collinwood because she felt like she did something so horribly wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as far as that whole, Jason McGuire talking about seeing Paul Stoddard in China, I wouldn't believe him. I think Jason McGuire will, he'll say like, hey, oh yeah, I'm sending 20 cases of ramen to the local prison. I got you. He's not.
Yeah.
I really like how my favorite scene, obviously, is when just Nancy Barrett, who was going to shoot Jason Dwyer, doesn't shoot him, but then ends up leaving anyway, running out, being really affected by all this. And that's the thing. There's a lot of character. You talk about the questions you get asked, and again, it's okay. Where's Carolyn now? What's Jason gonna do? Because he's in the next episode, he's gonna get told, "I want you out of town before sun up," and he asks for sundown, and they give it to him because of Elizabeth dropping the charges and stuff. But
bad idea, Jason.
Yeah,
not a good plan.
No, it's not. Especially what happens to him. Not in this episode, but they're in the episode next where they do. I love the scene between. It's not in this episode though, and I wish it was. The scene between Victoria and Jason McGuire in the Blue Veil, I think, is criminally underrated. They don't take it anywhere, but still, it's really, really good. It's not in this episode though. Again, my favorite scene is when Carolyn leaves, because again, because that's what Victoria does. She begins looking for Carolyn, for Elizabeth, and a lot of things too for Victoria. She's had to keep Elizabeth's secret in all this, leading up to the whole wedding and stuff, and Elizabeth swore to secrecy. So, is there anything you guys want to add before we go?
No, I think it's just a good, solid episode.
Mm-hmm.
When do you guys want to do the next episode? Friday, we're doing Terminator with Butch, me and Patrick. Saturday,
Gordon,
doing,
you want to talk about Terminator?
Huh?
I asked Gordon, want to talk about Terminator. He had a lot to say about it earlier.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to be out. Well, not unfortunately, I'm going to be heading out and enjoying an evening of belly dance, flow arts, and just pure sexy fun stuff.
Good for you.
Good for you. Yeah, I mean,
clubs?
it's like, I don't mind doing these things, but there's one person in this room who kind of brings the sexy level down. It's existentially, it's like eating a Velveeta sandwich on white bread with Miracle Whip. And the person isn't Patrick.
I try to do better.
No, it's not you, Patrick. I don't want to mention names.
Now,
Julie. Yeah, I will be. Yes, I will be engaging in some rather decadent activities. Hopefully, so.
Okay.
Saturday, I know we're doing Vertigo.
I'm going to be hanging out with fellow bearded fat men talking about an old science fiction film from the 80s. So it'll be the three of us.
Are you good for Saturday, Gordon, for Vertigo?
Yeah, I'm good Saturday for Vertigo.
Will you have slept it off?
Yeah, I will have slept it off.
Okay.
And hopefully, I'll say this. I may not want to be alone tomorrow night, but I definitely want to be alone Saturday morning, if you catch my meaning.
Yes, we won't call you Saturday morning.
Joel's not getting it, Patrick, is he?
It's I'm a lonely man. I support you in these endeavors.
Mm-hmm.
I've went to a strip club once before. Anyway.
Was it a strip club in Illinois?
No, it was a strip club in Pennsylvania called Fine Diamonds.
Oh.
Before they find you.
Yeah, because in Chicago we have a law a really interesting law about strip clubs. You can have full nudity but not serve alcohol, or you can have alcohol but women have to wear like pasties and other kind of bits. They can't be fully naked.
They're not like Cornish. That's pasty.
How's how's Sunday night for the next Dark Shadows episode?
That's fine with me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Fine with me.
It's Gordon's turn to pick for that.
979.
979. Okay. I'll see you guys. Well, I'll see you Friday. Is 9:45 good for you tomorrow, Patrick?
Yeah. 9:40. What are we talking about?
Terminator.
Yeah, 9:45 tomorrow's great. Thank you.
So, guys, I'll see you over the weekend. Take care, guys.
All right.
Not at all.
Sir.